Winter is coming. And... The Reigns of Castamere. Now, because I'm keeping these episode reviews spoiler-free, this one's actually going to be really hard for me to even figure out how to talk about, because, wow. There have been some shocking and surprising things happening over the course of this show, but nothing has so fundamentally changed the landscape of what was going on like the events of this episode. And it's the kind of shakeup that it could break a lot of other shows, because it forces you to really reassess what is this show even about at its fundamental core. And for a lot of people, they're going to realize, well, this story is not what I thought it was going to be. And I think the show handles that really well in terms of how everything is presented so that it becomes as digestible as something this massive can be. Some of the stuff that I feel like I can safely talk about, there's some stuff going on around the wall right now, because you've got the two youngest Stark boys along with their servants, and they've been on the run since the end of the second season. Earlier in the season, they linked up with some other characters. I didn't talk too much about them because I didn't really care one way or the other. They were there, they were fine, there was nothing wrong with them. They hadn't really done a lot yet. Well, we're getting a better sense of all these groups and also where some of these characters are headed, and it brings in some magical elements in a way that I'm more comfortable with, because it's not tying them to a specific deity. And I kind of like that, there's some stuff going on and we don't really know what this is right now. Now, I feel like I can't really talk about the big set piece of this show really at all without giving away really too much. Even if I say what characters are involved or even where it happens, I really feel like that's giving too much away. You gotta go into this blindly. I will say though, in terms of some of the other storylines that went on in this episode, I've come to the realization I don't care about Jon Snow. Which hasn't been a problem yet, but I feel like it's going to be an increasing problem as the show goes on, because I'm really getting the feel that he's going to become more and more central to the overall story. And he's just boring. Here's the thing with Jon Snow. He has never surprised me. Every single step of his journey has been completely predictable. I'm not going to go so far as to say that when he first showed up, I could have predicted where he is right now, but I can always see the next few steps of his journey from where he is. When we first meet him, we know he's going to the wall. And when he gets there, you can already guess what the dynamic is going to be with him and the other members of the Night's Watch. And when he goes beyond the wall, what happens to him there with Ygritte is also very predictable. There's never been any part of his story that is ever surprised me. And given a lot of the really amazing stuff that goes on with other characters, that just makes him really boring, and I don't care. It's like, I think in an effort to make him as noble as the story requires him to be, it just makes him dull in a way that Ned Stark never was. Ned Stark was incredibly noble, but he was surrounded by all these people who weren't, and it really made for a fun contrast. Jon Snow is working more or less in isolation. I mean, he's got other people around him, but because he's so far removed from everything else going on, it just makes his nobility, rather than being in contrast to those around him, just makes him that guy who's off there and he's noble. Whatever. I'm still really liking what's going on with Daenerys. They've introduced a new character into her story, though, that I right now I like him, but if they go the direction that I think they're going to go with him, I'm going to end up disliking him pretty shortly down the road. But for right now, he's enjoyable. So, one more episode to go. I have a feeling it's probably going to be a slower paced episode, because the way these seasons have usually gone is the really big, dramatic, was always the second to last episode. The execution of Ned Stark, the Battle of Blackwater. Last episode is usually wrapping things up and just putting them to bed until we can start up again. But until then, let me ask you this. Which television or movie hero have you found ridiculously boring, even though everything else going on around him is awesome? Leave a comment, let's talk about it. Until next time, this council is adjourned.